All right, hey guys, wanted to throw this video out there in a lot of ways. I think this could be one of the most important videos that we've ever done. Again, I'm sorry if it's a little bit long, but I do think this will be one of the most important things to hear, not only from what it may feel like is geared towards our alumni, the people that have kind of been with us for a while and have graduated and out there flying on their own, but if you're still in the trenches and you're on this journey of losing weight or whatever your goals have been, you're checking in every week, this is just for you as well. This will give you a glimpse into the future of kind of what the long-term play here looks like and how to avoid some of the pitfalls that I think we've all come into. I called this video maintenance mode WTF because I think we've all sort of had those moments. I know I have, and I'm going to use myself as sort of the primer for a lot of the story behind this. I think it relates to a lot of you. I could also call this video maintenance mode. It isn't what you think it is, or you're not actually in maintenance mode, which is you're going to find out is the case for a lot of you. Know this, that at the end of a process, what we refer to as maintenance mode is actually physiologically known as metabolic homeostasis. And that's the idea that water seeks its own level, right? It's the scientific idea that caloric intake is matching caloric output. So we're eating as much as we're burning, and our weight, our body, our performance, our things are kind of holding their own. So it's a place that a lot of us might be trying to get to and ride out forever. Some of us, that's not the case. Some of us, we shift gears several times. We want to get leaner and our focus is there. Then we kind of reverse gears and work on maybe going into a surplus and building muscle and getting stronger. And we kind of fluctuate between lots of goals. But today I'm mostly speaking for you all that are on this long-term plan where you have met most of the goals, you're happy with the progress, and you want just to hit pause and ride that out. You want to just to stay the same, you want to maintain. That's the idea of maintenance mode. For you all, I want to start with one thing, and that is something very simple that goes back to the very beginning and principles of this whole thing. If you are gaining weight, there is a surplus somewhere. You are not in maintenance mode. If you're losing weight, there's a deficit somewhere. You are not in maintenance mode. Now, we can talk about the nuances of what that weight gain is. Some people might think, hey, I'm gaining weight, but it's all muscle mass. You might be told that. Not likely, unless you're really extreme on your strength training and how you're working out and training. Not likely. The other scenario is, hey, I'm gaining weight and it's all fat. Could be a little bit more likely than the previous. And then, of course, the last one, especially for you all that are sort of the gym rats among us, it's a combination of the two. And that is probably the most likely is the case. And what that breakdown is, we don't know without further testing. But just know this, maintenance mode is just how it sounds. It means things are staying the same. The skill, the measurements, the performance, all those things are sort of riding even. And if that's not happening, then we need to figure out why it's happening. We need to figure out how to avoid that. So you all probably all know this little chart here that we've seen before. We've talked about from the beginning of this, where we have a metabolic rate, right? And let's say your metabolism generally is represented by this red line and looks something like this. And then we have caloric intake, how much food you're eating, right? And for most people, the beginning of this is all over the place, like most people walking around in the world, right? But what we do if we're trying to lose weight, or let's just use that as an example, we're trying to lose fat, is right, we create a deficit. We make our food intake, well, these markers aren't working, we make our food intake sustainable, and we keep it just below this line, right? And all this area in between these two lines then essentially becomes weight loss. It becomes fat loss. Well, what happens? Well, we talked about this before, that this red line, of course, your metabolic rate is slowly trying to match your intake. That's what the body always does. That's simple physiology. And when that happens, of course, what do? You all that have been through the program for a long time, you know this little thing where we have what we call a cut, right? We'll cut this down, and then what happens again? Well, that red line matches on out for a little while, and then we get this more area right here of fat loss, and eventually they meet, and then we cut it again, and we keep stair-stepping this down as this slowly begins to meet it, and at some point, we stop. Let's say that we've met our goals, that this whole process has brought us to this end point that we're very happy with and want to be satisfied. So right here, this point right here, we stop and we say, hey coach, I want to go into maintenance mode. I'm happy, let's hit pause. Maybe this happens at the end of one of your sessions, and at the end of 12 weeks or 24 weeks. You're like, I'm not going to pay for another session. I want to maintain. Well, what tends to happen is one of two things here. One is that we put ourselves into a self-coached maintenance mode by bringing ourselves out of this perceived deficit and arbitrarily add food back into our diet. We increase our numbers by some arbitrary amount to put us into what we think is maintenance mode and out of this deficit. Your mind is thinking, hey, I've been in deficit all this time. So if down here, if I'm happy where I am, well, all I'm going to do is maybe bump myself back up to where I was at this last little cut right here. So I don't know, let's just say that's, I'm going to add 30 carbs and 10 grams of fat because that's what it was back here, and I'm happy now, so I don't want to be in the deficit. I'm going to go back to that. Well, here's the biggest problem with that. What if you were actually in maintenance mode right here? We don't know that. We don't know. How do we know you would have kept losing weight? How do we know we were still in a deficit and that these two lines hadn't actually already met? It is extremely likely, very likely indeed, that your maintenance numbers are the last numbers you had at the end of your cut, because that is the place at which your metabolic rate has met and matched. That is homeostasis. And it's not some evil thing like, oh, have we crashed our metabolism down to this point now and we're screwed? No, it's a good thing. You're a smaller, leaner, lighter person. So your body requires less energy to maintain that. And that is why your metabolism is met. Now, can we reverse gears and go in another direction? Well, sure. But it has to be slow and systematic, because if you just arbitrarily increase calories here, but your metabolic rate continues to be down here, well, now all this area right here, what is that? That's surplus. That is now going to be weight gain. And will this lines eventually meet again out here in space somewhere? Sure, they will. Eventually your metabolism will rise to these numbers. But I don't know how long that could take. That could be weeks, that could be months, and that could be months of slow, consistent weight gain again that you don't want to see, that kind of puts you somewhere back in the middle of this process again. So that's sort of the first way it happens. And the way to avoid that is simple. Sometimes it's a financial commitment. I understand that. Sometimes it's a time and effort commitment. It's a bad time of life for you to do this. But we need to work probably with a coach to slowly and systematically ramp these numbers up in a sustainable way to where weight gain isn't happening. The other thing that can happen here is that on purpose, you need to gain a few pounds back. That's happened in my case. A lot of times we have in physiology, there's this principle that there are these metabolic set points. There's these kind of homeostatic weights that your body naturally performs and feels best and is healthiest at. And sometimes to reach that and to sustain that, we drop ourselves sort of under that level in terms of leanness. We lose probably more weight than we ever intended to. We get a little, for me, I'm going to use myself as an example. I went from 255 pounds at my heaviest to about 217 at my lightest. Well, I know, I do fitness for a living, so I know my body performs best at probably 220 to 225. It's just what I naturally, at my size, feel the best at. So when I got down to 217, the fact that I would bump back up to 220 or a little bit more than that is okay with me. That was intentional. If I had stopped at 225, the bump up might have been a little heavier than I wanted it to be. So part of that's to be expected. But the other side of it that happens here, and this would be a very systematic way of, hey, I just threw more calories into my diet without even thinking about what those should be, what the effects would be. The other way this happens is sort of unintentional. It's the same thing. The science is the same, but the reason is a little bit different. And that is this, is that we don't do it in a systematic way at all. We simply bring ourselves out of maintenance into a surplus by dialing back the intensity and the effort at which we track. And this could be a variety of different ways, right? This could be, hey, I'm hitting pause on this little journey. I'm just going to maintain or ride it out in lifestyle mode. So I might go out to dinner on the weekends and not worry about it, or just throw some random numbers. I might do some estimating. I might quit tracking the couple glasses of wine I have throughout the week, and I might eat a couple extra bites off my kids' plates. You know, the little things here and there that when you were giving this an A effort all along, all of a sudden you start giving it a B or maybe even a C effort. And what you don't realize is that you don't have as much room for error as you thought you did in the back of your mind, right? That's something that we all get to. Hey, I've had a lot of success, so now I have a little bit of room, a little bit of margin for error here, and I should be able to maintain this. When in reality, what's happened is this margin for error is being blown up, and you've put yourself in a surplus on accident. You just, by not tracking everything and not being as diligent, you are eating and consuming more calories than you realize. The other side of this whole thing is that this journey, what we've taught you, could sort of be backfiring on you. And I mean this in a good way, but it still happens. And that is something very simple. Back here before you started and you were eating like an asshole, like we kind of like to commonly say, what's the first thing that you realized about this program? For most of you, it's that I'm not eating enough protein and I'm eating too much of the other stuff. So from the very beginning, when we ramped your protein up and you saw the positive effects of that, that has stuck with you because of that satisfaction you saw from those effects. So down here, if anything, you might keep the same numbers in your phone. You might, under MyFitnessPal, you might have the same goals. I would bet you that you are hell-bent on still getting more protein or hitting your protein numbers, right? And if you just casually forget to track something or estimate something, it's probably on the carbohydrate or fat end, right? Well, here's the issue with that. Back here, you weren't eating all that protein, and you were still fibbing on the carbohydrates and fats for every now and then. You would still have that wine and that beer or that extra dessert. But now over here, you're getting that extra 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it is, grams of protein a day on top of that extra, right? It's that adage of the guy who will eat the pizza but then have the grilled chicken salad on the side because they think that nice high-protein lean meal will cancel out the pizza, right? That's what's happening. Well, in reality, the calories are still there. So that extra, let's say 50 grams of protein you're now eating a day, that's just another 200 calories of surplus that's going on top of the extra food you're already forgetting to track. So in a lot of ways, it's just backfiring on you and making the weight gain even more pronounced. That's why it happens quicker here than it ever happened throughout your life. Know this. Most people walk around in maintenance mode all the time. Your friends, your family, right? It's the idea that you don't continually gain weight forever or lose weight forever. Homeostasis will be reached. Now, those people could be 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight. I don't know. But most people, unless it's an extreme example that ends up on a TV show, for most people, they end up hovering around a place where their weight fluctuates in a certain range. If that is not happening for you, if that's not the case, it's because there is a deficit or a surplus somewhere. You're not actually in maintenance mode at all, and you've got to do something to address that. Now, why might this whole scenario, which is the science side, why might that be happening to you to begin with when you never intended for any of this to happen? You thought you could just ride this out forever. Well, that goes to an emotional reason that Jan and I actually had a great conversation about last night. For most of us, you form these great habits in this process, but the satisfaction that those habits has brought you here isn't what's going to keep you here. You've heard that adage that what got you here isn't going to keep you there before. You hear that in sports and career. Where the truth is, and this is the good news, is what got you there is exactly what's going to keep you there. It's the tracking, it's the accuracy, it's the dedication, it's the intentionality of eating that's going to keep you in maintenance mode. When you lose any of those things, you reverse course. But the satisfaction, the reward you're getting has to change. Through this process, you're seeing great things happen, right? You're seeing the scale move. You're seeing inches come off your waist. You're seeing clothes fit. And down here, when that stops happening, you have to find satisfaction somewhere else because this is a rewarding process. Thinking about just hovering in maintenance mode forever, maybe not quite as rewarding. So we've got to find satisfaction in another place. And that's either got to come from things like, hey, I've kept this same clothes on for 3 seasons now, or I've maintained my weight through the holidays or on vacation, or I'm seeing consistent performance in the gym over the course of a whole year. You've got to be able to derive pleasure and satisfaction from something else besides stats that have been moving for so long that are no longer going to move. That's all I have for you guys. Sorry, a little technical glitch there. Beauty of modern editing, we can put these things together. But if you all have any questions on this, how can we help you? Please fire them off to us. Let us know. Talk to us. Put a message below. Talk to your coach. What would help? Would a once a month check-in be worth your money and something to help you maintain that accountability to keep you in this sort of long-term maintenance plan? Would having some other ideas of where to find satisfaction, changing goal setting, that sort of thing help? Just know this, that one of my biggest fears in this entire program, this entire company, is that we would help someone realize all these positive changes and goals and satisfaction, and then at the end of it, let them off to go fly and leave the nest on their own, and then a year later come back and see that they've come right back to where they came from. And that would, by definition, be a yo-yo diet, a program that's a roller coaster, and something that we've set out from the beginning to not become. So if there's anything at all we can do to help you avoid that, please, please, please let us know, and we'll try our best to do so. All right? Hang in there, guys.